Hi guys, in the comments of one of the videos I was asked what folders are encrypted. You type in a password when you're booting up, which is optional incidentally. You can choose not to be encrypted, but if you choose to be encrypted and you enter the password at boot up, what folders are actually encrypted? Now, as I explained in an earlier video, that down here, if you can see on the bottom left corner, that partition is what we call the working partition, and that is where EasyOS is installed and it's mounted. That little orange thing there means that it's mounted, but we cannot unmount it. Okay, so that is where EasyOS is installed, and if you will remember, it's actually in a folder called Excalibur, and we have those three files, remember? Init.rd, the VM Linux, there's also easy.sfs, which has been put away in here, in this folder here. So they're the three folders that constitute EasyOS. And notice these other folders. These were in fact all of these folders, these were all created at the first boot up. So initially when you're first booting up, there were only those three files, the init.rd, VM Linux and easy.sfs. And then these get created. Okay, now some of these are encrypted. In fact, I can tell you straight away which ones. I'd like to do something technical in this video, but for those who are not inclined to the technical side of things, you can take away some good information here. If I right-click, display, show hidden, that will now show all the hidden files. Hidden files all have a dot at the start of them. See, dot shutdown, dot temp work, and then dot qlang. So they are all hidden files. Now notice there's a folder has created here called dot session. That is where the session is saved. Now, what I mean by that, let's go into that. Actually saved in session 1 inside session. So now, so we're looking inside this. I'll stretch it out a bit so you can actually see the full path. So mount NVMe 01P2. This is a SSD, solid state drive, inside my laptop. That is partition 2. Folder Excalibur, dot session, and session 1. Now what is all this? This is where everything is. This is where your current session is saved. Now, if you were to look at the top of the folder hierarchy, which is here, what you're seeing here is the top of that overlay file system. Okay, you're looking down at the top of the overlay file system, and the topmost folder is in RAM. Okay, it's in RAM, and below that you've got the easy.sfs, which is has all of EasyOS in it in a read-only format. Now this topmost layer, this one that we're looking at, when you shut down normally and you asked, do you want to save the session? If you choose to save it, then everything in the topmost read-write folder of the overlay FS file system will get flushed to the working partition. And that's where it gets flushed to. This session 1 folder. So you're running in RAM, but at any time you can choose to save to the working partition. Okay? Right. However, you can also save at any time you want to. Like, there's this icon on the desktop called Save. And if you click on that, it comes up with a whole lot of information about how you can configure the saving of the session. Okay? Now, you can ask it every shutdown, which it shows here, right? Let's just have a look at the top here first. EasyOS is running in RAM, with the exception that any files saved in files are already saved in the working partition. Now that's a bit of a digression, but it's a useful digression to know, because if we just go back here, get back up again. Now remember I said there's these files, these folders all get created at the boot up. There's one here called Files. Now, what is particularly important about that is that over here on the top left corner, that files folder is actually a link directly to that folder in the working partition. In other words, although we are running in RAM, that files folder is an exception. Anything you put in there gets saved immediately into the working partition in that folder. And you can see it here. So here we've got the top of the hierarchy, and this file, notice the little arrow on it. That means it's a symbolic link, or it's a link. And in this case, it's a link directly into that files folder in the working partition. And you can see it's got information, a pop-up information there. It's symbolic link to mount NVMe 0N1P2, that's partition 2, folder Excalibur, and folder files. So that's the exception. Everything else is in RAM, except for that. And normally files, that's where you would put all your personal stuff. So if you've got a photo collection or download videos, whatever, you put them in there. We don't want them cluttering up the RAM, so that's why we save them directly. We've only got so much RAM. If you use the package manager and install packages, they're going to all be in RAM until you save the session. So you have to be very careful not to run out of RAM. I've got 32 gigabytes of RAM on this computer, so I never hit any problem. But if you go down here, this little icon down here shows you how much free RAM you've got. It's telling me I've got 45 gigabytes of storage space and 45 gigabytes free. Now, what that means is I've only actually got 32, but it's using what compressed RAM, what we call ZRAM, which is it's compressing everything. So everything that we have in the top read-write layer of overlay FS is actually compressed. So effectively, we've got more storage than that 32 gigabytes. So that's just a technical detail. But the important thing to know is that anything you put in files goes straight to the storage media. Now, back onto here. To save the session, you can ask it every shutdown, which is the default. Automatically save it every shutdown. So every shutdown, it will automatically flush that top read-write layer into the .session folder, into that session 1 folder. Okay. Automatic do not save. It doesn't save at all. Why would you not save? Well, it asks anyway, but sometimes you just want to be like, you don't want any record of what you've done in this session. You just want to be anonymous, basically. You want to forget everything you've done in the session. You don't want to save it. Yeah, that's an option. Okay. But there's another interesting thing here. Toggle off session in RAM. Tick checkbox to restore traditional behavior. Direct writes to the drive. This is acceptable with an HDD, that's a rotating magnetic platter hard drive, or a good quality SSD. It will take effect at next boot up. What that means is that when I'm talking about this top level read-write layer of overlay FS being a folder in RAM, you have the option of it not being in RAM. You actually have the option of it being this session 1, directly mounted in the overlay FS as the top layer, as the read-write layer. So if you can envision that, if this is actually directly the top layer in the overlay FS, then anything you say, any files you save or change or modify, whatever, will be immediately written to the storage media. Now that means it's going to be hammering the storage media a lot, especially when you're running like a web browser which has got a cache files, all sorts of stuff, huge amount of stuff going on. If you've got a really high quality SSD or magnetic platter type SSD, HDD, then you can get away with it. Okay? So that's an option. Then you don't have to worry about saving the session at all. It's automatically saved every single time, goes straight to the storage media. Now that has another great advantage in that when we come down here to this, looking at this memory thing here, so it's saying personal storage, it's no longer limited by the amount of storage in RAM, available in RAM. it will now be whatever the free space is in that partition. So come right down the back corner here, left down there again, and that partition actually has 64 gigabytes. Some of it's used up, but most of that is still free. So all of that space is free. So the big advantage of this method, direct writing, is that you're no longer going to have to worry about running out of RAM. So you're not running in RAM anymore. You are writing directly to the storage media. It's not a good idea on one of those cheap little flash drives because it's too slow. You're going to notice it. So that, I've still got it here somewhere, that little cheap little thing that I bought, that little cheap one that I bought, here it is. What was it called? Alexa, yeah, for 13 Australian dollars. I wouldn't recommend direct writing to that. I mean, it'll kill it very quickly, for one thing, but also you'll find it's very slow, and you'll find everything will slow down. So don't do that. I don't recommend it. But certainly a high-quality SSD can sustain lots and lots of writes. So that's all very interesting, and I thought you might want to know those technical details, even if you're not technically inclined. Now, in this window here, notice it's got Save Session. So you can save the session immediately, not just at shutdown. If you just want to save the session right now, and maybe not save it at shutdown, you can do so. Maybe you've done some critical work and you're worried about the power going out or something, whatever. Laptop, it doesn't matter, but on a desktop, yes. You can save the session right now. So I'm not going to bother with any of that, just getting out of there. All right, now, I wanted to go and explain something else. I made some notes, actually. I made some notes. But about what folders are encrypted, that's right, yeah. That was the main reason that I started this video. If we go into here and look on the working partition, those folders that got created at startup, the ones that are encrypted are the containers folder, files, releases, and .session. Okay. So the work that you're doing, all the downloading, whatever, etc., like here, home folder, you've got the web browsers, Chromium running as user Chromium in the home folder, SeaMonkey running as user SeaMonkey, and of course they all have, if you go into them, I'll show hidden files in there, display show hidden, they have caches and all sorts of stuff. I've configured actually Chromium not to save the cache when it shuts down because it just takes up too much space. But anyway, so when the session gets saved, all the stuff that's in here that's been created or edited or anything, it all gets saved into that .session folder and it's encrypted. So of course, with Chromium you're going to have like passwords and whatever. It's all sorts of sensitive stuff. So you want it to be saved in an encrypted folder. Okay. Now your files as well. That's another thing. They might just be your collection of photos. Maybe that's pretty harmless, but you might want. It depends what kind of photos, of course. But you might want those to be encrypted as well. So that files folder is also encrypted. And in my case, there are all these ready-made folders as well. I've got media, video, EasySR. That's what is running now, the Easy screen recorder, and we save the sessions in here. Okay, so basically anything you want to save permanently. Your photos, you've got images, heaps of photos. I can right-click and just see thumbnails of all of those. You see thumbnails. Right-click again and take away thumbnails. So yeah, you would want to have that files folder encrypted. The releases folder doesn't matter so much. The containers, yeah. Well, containers is where all the container information is stored. If I go into Excalibur I use the DevX container quite a lot, so I'll just have a look in there. This is actually where the DevX container stores all of its stuff. Now it's running in the RAM as well. It's the same situation. It's running in the RAM. So when you start the DevX container, it will actually create another little overlay FS file system specifically for the DevX container with a read-write top layer folder. And it's the same situation. It will, when you have to save the session, that read-write top layer of the DevX container will get flushed down to the storage media in here. So every container has its .session folder as well. So that might be sensitive information as well. So every container, this is all of them that we exist at the moment, has its own .session folder. Excalibur, for example, has a .session folder. Just very quickly, I don't want to stay for too long, I just want to finish this video, but .session folder, if you were to look in there, you would see that all the stuff that I've been installing, not much actually, Shotcut, installed Shotcut. I had a lot of stuff installed and I cleaned it out. That's another story. You can clean them out, any of these containers. If you accumulated, installed lots of packages or whatever, you can just clean it up again. That's another story. So I just wanted to give you a run through of those folders, what folders are encrypted and where they are all located. I hope you found that useful and I hope it was not too hard to follow. So I'll finish this video. I wanted to talk about something else as well, but I don't want to make the video too long. So that will be a separate video. Notice that I'm back on using GUVC View webcam. This is built into my laptop. The quality is not quite so high, but it's more convenient rather than mounting the phone on a little tripod. Okay, so I'm going to stop recording now.